I think it's like, have you done all the preliminaries? Please start. Faith, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Hazur. Hazur, we have about 135 guests, and so far we have about 20 questions.
MashaAllah.
The first question is from Mr. Edward Ngulu. He's from Uganda. Yes. His question is, he says, I am a Christian. I have lived together with Muslims in Uganda since I was very young. Sadly, believers of most faiths, including Christianity and Islam, have been identified with wars and conflict. What advice can you offer people of all faiths?
Personally, I think that no religion can be identified with wars and bloodshed. It's always the political powers which exploits religions and cause bloodshed and atrocity upon others. So it's always done in a very clever disguise by the politician. If politician did not interfere, there would not be any religious war at all. That is my first answer. And the second one is that sometimes some religious bigots or zealots are known to have caused disruption of all sorts, but they do not belong to the original true religion at all, because at the sources none of other religions preach violence against humankind. So these two answers perhaps will suffice, will cover the entire area. The only advice is return to your origin, return to your sources of religion, and then you will find nothing but peace there. Please.
This question is from Miss Teddy Ngur. She's also from Uganda. Her question is that some Christian churches have started ordaining women into priesthood.
Pardon?
Some Christian churches have started ordaining women into priesthood. What role do Muslim women have in leadership in Islam?
You see, Islamic leadership is in agreement with all the previous religious leaderships. There is no difference whatsoever. When you count the prophets according to the Old Testament and New Testament, the real prophets who were sent to people by God, they were all male prophets. But women can serve their part, of course, and in preaching to others, in doing good things, in calling towards Allah's path, that's a different story. But as a prophet, a person bears such burden on his shoulders that according to the realities of life, not on sentimental basis, but according to the realities of life, it is not possible for women to discharge that burden throughout, because they go into pregnancy, they have menses, etc., whatever it is. They are unfortunately unable to deliver the goods altogether from Allah all the time. So that is why there is reason behind it. In every religion you will find the same thing.
This question is from Mr. Giles Andrews. He's a solicitor from Surrey.
Please.
Mr. Andrews' question is, how can we deepen the close relationships, humanity and divinity in us all?
Humanity and divinity?
In us all. They
can't be separated. The question should be, how can they be separated? Because they are one and the same thing. Within you, if you are divine in your attitude, then this is humanity as well. If you are human, truly human, then you have to be divine, because God takes best care of His own human servants. In that sense, they can't be separated, they have to live together. Humanity and divinity.
This question is from Mr. Leo Murray from Wandsworth.
Yes, please.
His question is, what is your interpretation of spiritual states and the cosmological, that's in inverted commas, God, in relation to the synchronization of brain frequencies?
Synchronization of what?
Brain frequencies.
Brain frequencies.
Yes, this.
You see, everything is ultimately a wave or a frequency, nothing more. There is no matter which cannot be described in terms of these frequencies and spiritual terms. Because matter, when it is broken up, it turns into waves and energy. And energy is just a form of existence which cannot be touched, cannot be defined even by the best scholars. They have tried to give definition of energy, but ultimately they know this is an area where they must fail. Because what is energy after all? According to religious concepts, energy is the will of God, and it emanates from the will of God, which is emanated in frequencies and wavelengths and creates all the difference in the world. So, although it's a rather complicated answer, but the question was complicated, so the answer had to be complicated. I tried to make it as simple as possible. If I understood you right, then all energies have a form of radiation and frequencies. They create the variation in existence despite the fact that they emanate from one God.
Mr. Keith Bowman from London.
Yes, please.
What do you see as the future for the religions of the world, especially Islam?
I think the religions of the world will ultimately dominate the entire world. Although they appear to dominate today, but what dominates in the name of religion is not religion at all. There are two different things. People who style themselves religious have gone so far away from their original sources that their religion can be described as something of their own ego and no more. So, although this state dominates the whole world, and there is no exception between Islam and Christianity and Judaism and whatever else you call it, but when I say religion will ultimately dominate, I mean that the design of God is to at least once establish the superiority of divinity upon the earth. That can happen after many trials and tribulations, after many sufferings, maybe after many holocausts, but it will happen only when man is ultimately completely disappointed with himself. And when he is so disappointed that he knows that all his wisdom, so-called wisdom and cleverness, has not been of any avail to him and to the world peace, that will be the time when he will be thinking of returning back to God. And that, I believe, will happen. That shall happen, inshallah.
This question is from Mr. Bakari Fatmir. He is originally from Kosovo. He lives in Luton. What do you think about the crisis in Kosovo, and what is the position?
You see, it is a very difficult question, but I have always tried to answer it in a manner that could satisfy the Western mind particularly, because they are being misled by their own propaganda in so many ways. Personally, I believe there are two objects or objectives of the Kosovo crisis. which are being followed by Clinton or the Western powers altogether. You see, first of all, let me suggest that if they meant real business and they wanted to save the Kosovan Muslims from ultimate destruction, they knew from their past experience that military occupation of the area was essential. So in the name of United Nations, not in the name of NATO or United States alone, but in the name of United Nations, they could have turned it into a humanitarian issue, or it was a humanitarian issue, but they should have taken it as a humanitarian issue, which could only be resolved by military presence in that area. Now, if I'm right, and I'm sure I'm right because other Western politicians have also fully endorsed this view. Clinton himself has accepted the fact that without the military occupation of that area, we cannot really resolve the problem. Some Western representatives on television say it is not possible to do it within a few months. Military presence to be made there requires a pre-planning of 5, 10 or more months. I agree, but they had all the time available. Kosovan crisis has not sprung up like a surprise. They knew it, they could anticipate it. They had seen it before, happening before. So if they were honest and sincere in saving the Muslim population of Kosovo, they could have done the same thing as suggested by themselves. So the previous Prime Minister of England has also said that in so many words. He said, all this is a hoax. What they should have done was to send military to occupy that area. Now, suppose it had happened. It would have become impossible for Yugoslavian Serbs to bombard United Nations military. If they had done so, then the United Nations had all the rights to hit back, not only at the bridges and military sources, but being hit by their army and by their gunships, etc., they could kick back anywhere. And the responsibility will fall on would have fallen on the shoulders of Serbians, not on the shoulder of outsiders. So this situation has led to many difficulties as to why it is happening and what is the ultimate objective. After analyzing the whole situation, my impression is that there are two objectives. Number one, to destroy the most trusted ally of Russia. Outside Russia today, all European countries and ex-Russian countries have left Russia as an ally, in fact. They're pursuing their own lines now. They're trying to gain independence against USSR. So the only well-trusted ally of USSR today is Yugoslav Serbs. There is no shadow of doubt about that. So if in the name of humanity and humanitarian crisis, they could bombard Serbs everywhere and destroy their military might, that would be a purpose achieved. In the meantime, Kosovo would have been bereft of Muslim population. So in the heart of Europe, they will find an area which, even if handed over to Muslims ultimately, would have been empty of Muslims for a very, very long time. and that united might of a political Muslim power would have disappeared. And because of their previous experiences and their fears of a Muslim strong presence in Europe, which are promoted mostly by the acts of Muslim terrorists, etc., they could be declared justified in so much. So this strategy, as you find today, is serving both these purposes.
This question from Mr. Hammond from Lewisham.
Mr. Hammond from Lewisham.
Yes.
Please.
He says,
over there, yes, please.
Yes. He says, I'm persuaded to believe in Islam, but a few things still stop me. One is, why is it that when the beliefs are as stated, Islam is associated with so much violence?
I think I have already answered this question, because violence is not the central theme of any religion in the world. But when religion go berserk and they leave their original sources, then the people who are left to guard the name of that religion guard it only for their own personal sake and to serve their ego no more. And that ego can be served by violence and this and that. What they call domination of a religion is in fact political domination of a people, no more. While domination in religious terms should be explained only domination of godly things. So these two things are quite at war with each other. Political domination of a people in the name of religion and domination of godly character cannot go together hand in hand. So I advise you to consider your opinion about Islam or about Christianity or about any other religion in the light of what I have said. Thank you.
He's got another question in the same lines.
Yes, please. Yes.
But how can it be acceptable that mortal man can take the position of God and claim to be fighting to defend truth on God's behalf?
It's not possible. It's stupid. Huh? Yes.
This question from Ms. Sumaya Pilichoska from Camden.
Yes, please.
Yes. She's an artist. Her question is, please can you tell us what is the position of Islam on the use of cannabis?
Use of cannabis?
Cannabis for medicinal use.
Islam,
is it haram?
Medicinal use of cannabis is permissible should be permissible according to every religion. Because medicinal use of anything which has been created by God is useful for the mankind, and it cannot be considered to be illegal in any sense. But when you use the name of medicine for giving yourself license to use cannabis, then under this cover, unfortunately, this cannabis is used most often wrongly than rightly. And when under medical advice cannabis is used, it very often happens that during the course of the treatment, the person gets addicted to cannabis itself, causing another disease. So that is why I discourage the use of cannabis, but limited and cautious use is permissible.
Ms. Pilichoska has another question. What do you say to those who give money on the lottery with the excuse that it pays for charities? Isn't it gambling?
I think it's gambling, and Islam does not accept in principle anything which is based on the idea of gambling or which is based on the principle of gambling. So lottery also causes a huge waste of public money, and also greed for having much more than you can earn. So in fact it is, in a manner of speaking, it obstructs the economic growth in a sense. Because people, once they get this attitude, once they acquire this attitude of getting quick, easy money, that means that by that much, their efforts will be less directed in the economic use, and in which you can earn money, of course, but with patience. So I think gambling should be condemned in all its forms. And whenever you call it in the name of charity, now tell me, what will reward the people expect from God who do charity, who do gambling not for the sake of charity, for the sake of helping people, but do it for the sake of earning quick money? While if all these people, instead of spend something in the cause of gambling, had collected that to help poor mankind, the outcome would be much greater, because a lot of the money which is put into lottery goes to the governments or intermediaries in so many ways. What is left for charity is a small amount of all that has been paid in. So if really they are charity-minded people, why don't they collect charity without any personal greed involved in the matter? I can challenge the governments in this sense, that they should just start collecting money for the charity, and the amount they will draw would be very small as compared to the amount they draw through lotteries. So God will not be interested in such charities. What is the purpose of this charity?
Question from Zulekha Hassan from Purley.
From Burley?
Purley.
Yes.
Can you pray when you have got nail polish on your hands?
Yes. Of course you can pray. And you can pray when you have lipsticks and rouge and everything. No problem. It's all a very small-minded, it is all a small-mindedness on the part of religious leaders who mislead women to these things, and it's all stupid. What Islam advises is cleanliness. And if you apply nail polish after cleaning your hands, they will add an extra cover to the nails. And whenever you wash your hands, the nails are also washed at the same time. So please don't pay regard to such advices. Thank you.
He has another question. Can Hazur please explain about the hijab, the veil?
Well, hijab has been used differently at different times throughout religious history. And hijab, in fact, means a cover, not in the sense of a cover which covers you all through the face, but a sort of cover which helps your chastity to be preserved. That is the spirit of hijab, to guard you against wayward eyes. So if you follow this hijab, this can be done in so many ways. If you are decently dressed, not only that, but if you have that dignity of personality in which men's eyes are rebutted, they cannot look at you with any greed in them, because the faces of such chaste women rebut those greedy looks, and man does not cast his eyes wrongly on such women's faces. If they are covered properly and have that look of dignity about them, I think that is the purpose of the veil, which is very well served in this. But because there are different societies, and because in different societies the greed of men is increasing with the passage of time, so when they say part of the face unveiled, then they try to devour it with their eyes. So in such countries where this happens, it is better if the faces are covered as best as possible. But the ideal spirit of covering your face or the veil has already been described by me, and this should be practiced differently in different situations.
This question is from Mr. Chiaro from Oxford. He's asked two questions which are related.
Yes.
Has Africa and Africans a place in the world, in world politics, as an equal player with the rest of the races? And the second question...
African players?
Have a place in the world.
Yes.
A place in world politics as an equal player with the rest of the races.
Yes.
And also, would the Africans fare better if they had their own indigenous religion, which could embrace their cultures and traditions?
You see, to follow religion is not the purpose. I mean, turning to the second part of your question, to follow God and gain godly habits is the purpose of all religion. So, unfortunately, the traditional African religions, as you find them today, do not serve this purpose. They can give you an aura, false aura of spirituality by beating drums and following some traditions, etc. And you think that you are gaining something, but actually no change is noticed by the rest of the world among such religious people. As barbarous to their own African brothers as they used to be before. So I don't advise you to fall back to these traditional religions. As far as the African place in the world society is concerned, the problem is that it is not a question which applies only to Africa. It is a worldwide question, a question of worldwide application. Today we find in the world one principle working, that might is right. And the politics of every weak country is subjected to this. Mighty has proved itself to be right. And he is always considered right when he conquers. So unless there is a change brought about in the attitude of the mighty people, despite possessing might, if they can at the same time be humane in their attitudes, then a big change can be brought about. But unfortunately, I think it's a wishful thinking. Such things have not happened and will not happen. Only, as I have suggested earlier, a world catastrophe can bring them back to their senses and no more.
Mr. Adila Ahmed Tajik from Luton.
Yes, from Luton.
Yes. What is Islam's view of Jesus Christ?
Islam considers all religious leaders or the founders of all religion to be God's representatives and not God themselves. Jesus being no exception. So we count Jesus Christ among the holiest of holy prophets and no more. We don't consider him to be Son of God or in any sense an eternal existence, enjoying eternal existence with God. Of course, Jesus was created at a time not long ago, but God existed eternally much before. And there is no sign whatsoever in the nature which indicates that there was somebody else living with God and helping him in giving birth to creation. So, this is our attitude about Jesus Christ. Whether Christians believe it or not, it's up to them.
A gentleman has given this question, but I think he forgot to put his name. But if I read, someone's asked the question, but he has forgot to put his name down. Yes. If I ask the question, then he may. Please. I am a Roman Catholic and my wife is a Muslim.
Yes, please. That's right.
Yes. My question is, what is the difference between Muslims, Sunni Muslims, and the Ahmadiyya community?
I represent Ahmadiyya community as such. And the difference between Ahmadiyya community and Sunni Muslims can be described briefly by informing you that we have, as Ahmadis, we believe Islam only existed at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his early followers, truly without any interference by outer influences. That is to say, at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Islam that existed, that was true Islam, and the proof was that Islam as believed was also shown, practiced as one religion by the whole society. There was no division in the societies caused by Islam. So the moment divisions happen to exist or take place in the society, that time showed that Islam was being broken, and Islam is a representative of unity of God which cannot be broken. So that only means that some people drifted away from the unity of God, and that is why Islam started a downhill journey towards differences between sects and sects, etc., etc. So what we believe, Ahmadis, is that if we do believe in Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Islam as represented by him, we must show that unity of ideology and unity of practice, regardless of which color we belong to, which nation we belong to. And I believe, and I can prove it to you, that Ahmadiyyat has proved itself to be right in this regard. Because we have gained Ahmadi Muslims from all over the world. And none of them differs with each other in their views, in their thoughts, in their practices of Islam. They're exactly the same. So if such unity can be forged in 160 countries of the world, what better proof can you require for the honesty of Ahmadiyya purpose? This you will find lacking in other Muslim sects, etc., unfortunately.
He also has another question that could you please point out which verse in the Quran refers to another prophet after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
The Holy Quran refers to this issue in so many ways. Number one, the Holy Quran tells us that God took a covenant from all his prophets that when another prophet follows, they would fully support him if he does not disagree with the principles of the preceding prophet. Now this covenant was also taken by from Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Holy Quran says it in so many words. We took this covenant of prophets from all prophets, and we take this from you, O Prophet of Allah Muhammad Rasulullah. So that shows that there was still a prophet to come, or this covenant should not have been taken at all. And the essential qualifications of that prophet should have been the same as I mentioned before, that if a prophet after you comes who supports the principles enunciated by you and the teachings which have been founded by you, then that prophet should not be rejected. In fact, you should advise your people to support such a prophet. So that is the prime verse, in my view, which supports the Ahmadiyya interpretation of Khatam al-Nabiyyin. Secondly, there is a verse in Surah An-Nisa which says, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِم مِّنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. That if after this Prophet, Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam, if anyone follows Allah and this Prophet, Muhammad Rasulullah, these would be the people, and they would be alone the people who would be recipients of awards from Allah. And what are those awards? They are described as minan nabiyina. Such people would be from among the prophets, was siddiqina, and belong to the second order after prophethood, which is called siddiqiyat, the real truthfulness, perfect truthfulness. And then shuhada, martyrs in the name of Allah. And then as-salihin, ordinary people who are righteous in their deeds. These are the 4 awards, spiritual awards, which had been granted to the man prior to Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam. And they are again shown in this verse to be given to all the true followers of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So to cut the long story short, I can offer so many other references as well, but I think these two should be found sufficient for the time being.
Miss Fola Adedeji.
Yes, please.
Why is religious music not encouraged in Islam?
Religious music can mislead people because music is something which has its own effect on people, and if you are lost to the effect of music, there is very little room left for the remembrance of Allah. So religious music is just a guise, just an excuse, no more. That is why in the beginning of all religions, music was not employed. In none of the religions. When the religions began to drift away from the original pristine sources, then gradually to attract people, they started these devices as music. What would bring people back to religion, they think, was the influence of music. But it could only bring them back to music, not to God. And this is my experience. These music lovers do not change in their style of life under the influence of that music. I can quote the example of some qawwals who are who have gained world fame in reciting religious songs in a manner that it influences the listeners very profoundly. And after this, when they return back to their normal life, they are as far away from religion themselves as they were prior to giving this performance. So one should be meaningful. Religion has its own music, and that music is the spiritual music which is caused by memory of Allah. If your emotions throb with the memory of God, that causes a music which leaves no room for your seeking help of outward music at all.
Mr. Abbas Jah from Croydon. He says, I have traveled between different countries within a period of a short time.
Yes.
Now I am very much confused about my future. What can I do now to release myself out of this stress?
This question is asked in generalities, while if you want a personal advice, you should seek interview or write to me in detail. What have you been looking for during your travels to different countries of the world, and why are you disappointed by finding not the object of your travel? Why not discovering the object of your travel? So if I know the whole case as such, only then I can be in a position to advise you, not otherwise.
Mr. Giorgio D'Souza, who is from Italy. He's an insurance clerk. You must go to Mecca once in a lifetime, but they will not let you go. What do you do then?
Nothing. If any insurance company can help us, I would welcome that. You see, to desire to go to Mecca based on Allah's words mentioned in the Holy Quran is a religious desire which is fully appreciated by Allah. But at the same time, Allah has mentioned it in the Holy Quran that if you do not find the passage clear, then you cannot force your entry. Then keep away from it. And we are following that advice. For all Ahmadis who face this problem of not being given permission to visit Mecca during Hajj days, if they follow this advice because of the Quranic advice that you should not force your passage, then wherever they are, their Hajj is virtually accepted by Allah as having been performed. This is our belief. Thank you.
There's also another question from Mr. D'Souza. What is the relationship between Jesus Christ and Mirza Ghulam Ahmad?
Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claims to be a spiritual representative of Jesus Christ, following the same attitude in life, which debunked force and coercion in the name of religion. That is the spirit of Christianity. That should be the spirit of Christianity, which was taught by Jesus, which was not practiced by the earlier Jewish prophets, unfortunately. If you are coerced, if you are beaten in the name of God, try to show patience. And if you are stuck on one cheek, offer the other one as well. In this way of your sacrifice, you can win more hearts than with the help of sword. This exactly is happening to Ahmadiyyat under Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, and so we believe that he was true in his claim that he is a spiritual true spiritual representative of Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Zakia Abu Bakr, who is a student at Y College. What is the difference between a Messiah and a prophet?
Already I have described it. Prophets are so many, but each all of those prophets were not called messiahs because of this difference which I have been pointing out. A Messiah teaches a supreme sacrifice in the name of religion, while other prophets were given permission by Allah to defend themselves with sword if a sword was raised against them. So Messiahhood lies in this central attitude of supreme sacrifice, while if you raise sword against sword, it is permissible, but abstain from doing it. This is Messiahhood. which differentiates it from prophethoods otherwise.
A question from Mr. Mumtaz Khan from London Park Hotel.
Hotel?
I think that's where he works.
You are working there?
No, he is living here.
Residing temporarily?
Yeah, temporarily. He is from Pakistan.
That's what I mean. He's
Yes.
temporarily residing in some hotel here.
Yeah, he doesn't know
A
English.
visitor from Pakistan, huh? And he doesn't know English?
Yes. No.
So how can he understand me if he doesn't understand English? Because this is an English-speaking meeting. Such guests should have been invited who knew English and who could phrase their questions in English language and understand my answer in English. So unfortunately, you have troubled him unnecessarily. Only now the gentleman who has brought him with him, he is responsible for translating all my answers into Urdu and make him understand. Thank you.
There are about 4 questions left.
Yes?
Yes. This question is from Mr. Chiaro, who asked
Mr. Kyari Kyaro?
Yes.
Yes.
He asked some questions before. Does the third world have a moral obligation to pay its debt to the Western world?
Of course it has. Contracts are contracts, whether right or wrong. When they make a contract with the Western world, whatever the nature of that contract be, if they do it of their volition, then they are bound to follow that contract to practice. I mean, there is no other moral obligation than to fulfill that contract. Thank you.
Mr. Isa Wema, he's a lecturer in management and accounting from Peckham. Promised Messiah ﷺ claimed divine guidance in establishing the Ahmadiyya Jamaat.
Yes.
Can the same be said about those who founded the other 72 sects in Islam?
You can ask them and they will tell you no. None of those sects were founded by a message, direct message to their leader by Allah. So this thing can be verified from them themselves. Ask anybody except for Shias. They claim that their beginning is authenticated by Allah's word. But that has to be subjected to some scrutiny, of course. As far as all the Sunni sects are concerned, none can claim that Allah or a divine person from Allah who had heard this word from Allah to institute a new organization, Islam, will be found among the Sunni sects. Not one.
Question which may be similar from Mr. Hassan Ali from Somalia. I came to know that the Ahmadiyya Jamaat was introduced some 100 years ago. If this is correct, then where was Ahmadiyya 400 years ago?
They were 1400 years ago in the form of the Muslims who followed Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, the word Ahmadiyya was made only to indicate that this sect is called a sect by the rest of the Muslims, but to identify them, the word Ahmadiyya Muslim should be applied to this sect. But Hazrat Masih Maud, the founder, did not call it a sect. That is one thing which people generally don't understand and don't need to understand. Hazrat Masih Maud called this Jamaat Ahmadiyya a Jamaat. And Jamaat is not a sect. So he called his followers Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. In that form, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat existed 1400 years ago as the true followers of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that had been predicted by the Holy Quran. Because in Surah Jumu'ah it was said, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ, that the person who will truly represent Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the latter days would bridge the gap between the earlier people and the new followers, and they will be made one. So that is why I say, I claim this on the authority of the Quran, not from my own personal self. The Holy Quran has said it in so many words. The true representative of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the latter days would make his followers, let me say, would bring his followers spiritually to meet the followers of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that they could be described as one people. His followers would be truly the followers of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is what it means. Thank you.
The second last question from Swami Manatawabi. He's from the International School of Humanitarian Thoughts and Practice from Kurukshetra in India.
From?
Kurukshetra in India.
Achha. Please.
His question, he says, my question is, what is the feelings of Ahmadiyya movement to movements which are rationalist, skeptic, humanist, secular, atheistic, and movements of other scientific nature who believe in human friendship? Will Ahmadiyya movement join hands with them?
See, there should be some common basis of belief and practices to join forces in that particular area. So we cooperate with all human beings who in any way serve the cause of humanity, whatever their beliefs are. So if they are atheists, it doesn't make any difference to us, because as far as the service of mankind is concerned, if they are honest and truthful in their intention to serve the mankind, we can, of course, cooperate with them as best as we possibly can. Thank you. If that was the question, then I have answered. Or was it a different question?
My other question is, should I come there?
Yes, please.
As far as atheism is concerned, while the humanists and atheists are wanting to see the people eliminated away from the fear of God, any fear, supernatural fear, how the Ahmadiyya movement reacts to this feeling?
Yes, sir. You see, all depends upon the interpretation of the word fear. Our interpretation is completely different from normally understood interpretation of the word fear of God. We always interpret it on the basis of other Quranic verses and the basis of the traditions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as fear to displease God. Now, when you are afraid of displeasing your parents, there is no horror in it, because you are not afraid of them like you are afraid of wolves, for instance, or snakes. You are afraid to lose their love. So that fear is in fact another name for love, no more. So we bring up Jamaat Ahmadiyya in this atmosphere of the understanding of the word fear. You should always be cautious in your thoughts and your acts, cautious of the fact that you should not do or think anything which will make you lose Allah's favors and Allah's love. Right?
I could not be clear. My question is about atheism, about the concept that there is no existence
this is
of
a
any
different
supernatural
question.
power.
The question you asked previously has been answered by me. Now you can ask the third question, please, about atheism.
About the people, those who think that there is no existence of any supernatural power.
I don't agree with them.
No, may not agree. That's a
Yes.
different thing. But can you be? Can their movement be cooperative and helpful and?
We cannot be
friendly
cooperative with this attitude with which we do not agree. And the first part, in the first part of your question, I've already answered it. Even if atheists do anything to serve their mankind, that is an area, a small area, in which we can be cooperative. Thank you.
This is the last question from Saro Harafetian.
Yes, please.
So much evil is going on or is allowed to continue against the forces of good, justice and humanity. Will there be a time in future that the forces of evil will be stopped or eradicated forever?
In fact, it is impossible. The fight between evil and goodness will continue forever. At times, we find goodness more dominant against evil. And at times, like seesaw, we find evil, unfortunately, becoming more dominant. Unfortunately, this is the time we are passing through, where evil seems to be dominant all over the world. But as I have expressed earlier my view, I am quite sure that in the long run, after all, God's will be done, and evil will be defeated at least once. Once this purpose is achieved by God, after that, if mankind turns to evil ways gradually and slowly, then Allah would not care for them. And according to the Holy Quran, a time would come when evil will ultimately dominate once again. But at that time, mankind will be wiped out from earth, and a new form of existence would take place and displace mankind. This is based on the Quranic teaching, many verses of the Quran, and I can prove it with reference to them, but there is not enough time to do all this now. But in principle, you can understand with reference to Noah. What happened at the time of Noah was that evil had dominated, and very few true divine people were left on earth. So for the sake of truth, Allah destroyed the number, which was overwhelming. The number of evil people did not matter. They were destroyed as a whole, almost as a whole. And Allah did not care because He had not created mankind for the sake of becoming evil. So if God had done it before, so He will do it once again. If mankind as a whole is rejected ultimately and has fallen back to its evil ways, then Allah will wipe mankind out of the face of the earth, and a new creation will be made which will behave better than the previous mankind. Thank you.